Hello, Massachusetts home buyers and sellers. This is your real estate enabler, Dan Bernal, here in the heart of the beautiful North Shore in Salem, Mass. And today what I would like to talk about is something we've seen a lot in 2017, which has easily been the busiest year in Massachusetts real estate, at least over the last decade, which is there's a ton of buyer competition because we are deep in what you call a seller's market, and all that means is there are more buyers than there are properties for sale. So we see a lot of competition by way of multiple offers on the same property, and this creates a bidding war where people are bidding against each other for the same property, and this tends to drive prices up. Now, what we hear from buyers more often than not, as they want to make a competitive offer, they're realizing that there's a lot of other people looking at the same property they are, is they're willing to say, well, we want to do everything we can, but we don't want to pay too much. Well, here's why you can't. Here in the great state of Massachusetts, we have one of the lowest instances of cash real estate purchases in the country. So all this stuff you see on TV shows where people are buying properties for $15, $20 million, all cash, that doesn't really happen very often in Massachusetts. Most people who buy a home here in Massachusetts are buying it with a mortgage, which is very common in the United States. And this is when you're borrowing money from a bank in order to purchase the house. You put some percentage of that down, but then you're going to pay the bank off on the property. Well, back in the Wild West days of 2005 and 2006, what we came to know as the bubble, banks were much looser about what they would lend on for a property. So if a seller said, well, I want, $700,000 for a property, and you said, I'll pay that, a lender would say, it's probably worth it, sure, here you go. Well, what happened was a lot of those loans were much higher than the properties were really worth. And when the lenders had to go and take back those properties through the process of foreclosure, as we all heard about, in order to get their money back, they realized, oops, we lent too much money on millions of properties. And what we had was a global economic meltdown. Nobody wants that again. We all know what that looked like. And as such, there are much stiffer regulations on what a bank will lend on a property for you to buy it with a mortgage. So there's a third party called an appraiser who is brought in every time a mortgage-based purchase happens. So you agree on a price with the seller. You want to pay $500,000, even though they were only asking $450,000, but you want to be competitive. You went way above asking. You want to pay $500,000. They want to sell it for $500,000. Whoa, everybody. A third party is going to come in who can't be swayed by either side, an appraiser, an independent appraiser whose job is only to establish value, and they're going to look at all the local comparative sales, everything that's similar to the property you propose to buy, and they're going to distill what they consider the value is. Now, if that value is the $500,000 that you guys agreed on, bang, zoom, you're all good. And you're not paying too much because all a property is ever worth is its comparative value to other similar sales. However, if that value comes in lower, you were making a crazy offer because you wanted to compete, but that offer is more than the house is worth, the bank's not going to lend you money on that. You will be functionally denied financing based on that purchase price. But, so you're off the hook, for instance. You can walk away, seller can walk away, they can try it again with another bank, with another buyer, with another appraiser, but most appraisers are going to come up with pretty similar values, within a few $1,000s of each other. Or the seller can come down to the most that the appraisal would allow, then your lender will lend on it based on that new value. So let's say you agreed on $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $470,000. If the seller comes down to $470,000, you still have a deal. You didn't pay too much, and they didn't get more than they should have. Now, for sellers, a lot of people would say, well, this is a bad deal. No, it isn't. It's good for everybody because it's protecting actual value. And in a strong market, you don't want fake value. You don't want this wispy something that could disappear if someone ever had to cash it in. You want real value. And that's what this is protecting. So this is basically good for everyone. And for once, I'm telling you, a bank is doing something in their own best interests that's good for you. And they are making it so you can't pay too much. So go into the market with confidence. You can make a strong offer. You may not be paying all of that, and you may have to walk away from the deal if the seller doesn't understand that. Sellers, if you get a fakakta high offer, $70,000 over what you were asking, don't go breaking out the Dom Perignon because you may not be getting all that value. You probably won't, and I'm going to tell you that if I'm your listing agent. I'm going to tell you, listen, I gave you good comparative value on this property. You may get a little more than that. You'll get the most the market will bear, but you're not going to get some crazy high value because this is finally being regulated so that we don't have another bubble. You can always find me at danbernal.com, and I'll see you next time. Bye.